Upanishads. Isa Upanishad. Behold the universe in the glory of God, and all that lives and moves on earth. Leaving the transient, find joy in the eternal. Set not your heart on another's possession. Working thus, a man may wish for a life of 100 years. Only actions done in God bind not the soul of man. There are demon-haunted worlds, regions of utter darkness. Whoever in life denies the spirit falls into that darkness of death. The spirit without moving is swifter than the mind. The senses cannot reach him. He is ever beyond them. Standing still, he overtakes those who run. To the ocean of his being, the spirit of life leads the streams of action. He moves and he moves not. He is far and he is near. He is within all and he is outside all. Who sees all beings in his own self, and his own self in all beings, loses all fear. When a sage sees this great unity, and his self has become all beings, what delusion and what sorrow can ever be near him? The Spirit filled all with his radiance. He is incorporeal and invulnerable, pure and untouched by evil. He is the supreme seer and thinker, immanent and transcendent. He placed all things in the path of eternity. Into deep darkness fall those who follow action. Into deeper darkness fall those who follow knowledge. One is the outcome of knowledge, and another is the outcome of action. Thus we have heard from the ancient sages who explained this truth to us. He who knows both knowledge and action, with action overcomes death, and with knowledge reaches immortality. Into deep darkness fall those who follow the immanent. Into deeper darkness fall those who follow the transcendent. One is the outcome of the transcendent, and another is the outcome of the immanent. Thus have we heard from the ancient sages who explained this truth to us. He who knows both the transcendent and the immanent, with the immanent overcomes death, and with the transcendent reaches immortality. The face of truth remains hidden behind a circle of gold. Unveil it, O God of light, that I who love the true may see. O light-giving Son, offspring of the Lord of creation, solitary seer of heaven, spread thy light and withdraw thy blinding splendor, that I may behold thy radiant form. That spirit far away within thee is my inmost spirit. May life go to immortal life, and the body go to ashes. Om. O my soul, remember past strivings. Remember. O my soul, remember past strivings. Remember. By the path of good, lead us to final bliss. O fire divine, thou God who knowest the mind to wander afar? Who first drives life to start on its journey? Who impels us to utter these words? Who is the spirit behind the eye and the ear? It is the ear of the ear, the eye of the eye, and the words. The mind of mind and the life of life. Those who follow wisdom pass beyond, and on leaving this world, become immortal. There the eye goes not, nor words, nor mind. We know not, we cannot understand. How he can be explained? He is above the known, and he is above the unknown. Thus have we heard from the ancient sages who explained this truth to us. What cannot be spoken with words, but that whereby words are spoken? Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be thought with the mind, but that whereby the mind can think? Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be seen with the eye, but that whereby the eye can see? Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be heard with the ear, but that whereby the ear can hear? Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit, and not what people here adore. What cannot be indrawn with breath, but that whereby breath is indrawn? Know that alone to be Brahman, the spirit. Master, if you think I know well, little truth you know. You only perceive that appearance of Brahman that lies in the senses and is in you. Pursue your meditation. Disciple, I mean to know. I do not imagine I know him well, and yet I cannot say I know him not. Who of us knows this, knows him, and not who says, I know him not? He comes to the thought of those who know him beyond thought, not to those who imagine he can be attained by thought. He is unknown to the learned and known to the simple. He is known in the ecstasy of an awakening which opens the door of life eternal. By the self we obtain power, and by vision we obtain eternity. For a man who has known him, the light of truth shines. For one who has not known, there is darkness. The wise who have seen him in every being, on leaving this life, attain life immortal. Part 3. Once upon a time, Brahman, the Spirit Supreme, won a victory for the gods. And the gods thought in their pride, we alone attained this victory, ours alone is the glory. Brahman saw it, and appeared to them, but they knew him not. Who is that being that fills us with wonder, they cried. And they spoke to Agni, the god of fire. O God all-knowing, go and see who is that being that fills us with wonder. Agni ran towards him, and Brahman asked, Who are you? I am the god of fire, he said, the god who knows all things. What power is in you? Asked Brahman. I can burn all things on earth. And Brahman placed a straw before him, saying, Burn this. The god of fire strove with all his power, but was unable to burn it. He then returned to the other gods and said, I could not find out who was that being that fills us with wonder. Then they spoke to Vayu, the god of the air. O Vayu, go and see who is that being that fills us with wonder. Vayu ran towards him, and Brahman asked, Who are you? I am Vayu, the god of the air, he said. Matarisvan, the air that moves in space. What power is in you? Asked Brahman. In a whirlwind I can carry away all there is on earth. And placed a straw before him, saying, Blow this away. The god of the air strove with all his power, but was unable to move it. He returned to the other gods and said, I could not find out who was that being that fills us with wonder. Then the gods spoke to Indra, the god of thunder. O giver of earthly goods, go and see who is that being that fills us with wonder. And Indra ran towards Brahman, the spirit supreme, but he disappeared. Then in the same region of the sky, the god saw a lady of radiant beauty. She was Uma, divine wisdom, the daughter of the mountains of snow. Who is that being that fills us with wonder? He asked. Part 4. He is Brahman, the spirit supreme, she answered. Rejoice in him, since through him you attained the glory of victory. And the gods Agni, Vayu and Indra excelled the other gods, for they were the first that came near Brahman, and they first knew he was the spirit supreme. And thus Indra, the god of thunder, excelled all other gods, for he came nearest to Brahman, and he first knew that he was the spirit supreme. Concerning whom it is said, he is seen in nature in the wonder of a flash of lightning. He comes to the soul in the wonder of a flash of vision. His name is Tadvanam, which translated means the end of love-longing. As Tadvanam, he should have adoration. All beings will love such a lover of the Lord. Master, you asked me to explain the Upanishad, the sacred wisdom. The Upanishad has been explained to you. In truth, I have been telling you the sacred teaching concerning Brahman. Upanishad, Part 1. Vajrasattva gave away all his possessions at a sacrifice, but it was out of a desire for heaven. He had a son called Nachiketas, who, although he was only a boy, had a vision of faith when the offerings were given, and thus he thought, this poor offering of cows that are too old to give milk and too weak to eat grass or drink water must lead to a world of sorrow. And he thought of offering himself and said to his father, Father, to whom will you give me? He asked once, and twice, and 3 times. And then his father answered in anger, I will give you to death. Nachiketas, at the head of many I go, and I go in the midst of many. What may be the work of death that today must be done through me? Remember how the men of old passed away, and how those of days to come will also pass away. A mortal ripens like corn, and like corn he is born again. Nachiketas had to wait 3 nights without food in the abode of Yama, the god of death. A voice. As the spirit of fire, a Brahmin comes to a house. Bring the offering of water, O god of death. How unwise is the man who does not give hospitality to a Brahmin. He loses his future hopes, his past merits, his present possessions, his sons, and his all. Death. Since you have come as a sacred guest to my abode, and you have had no hospitality for 3 nights, choose then 3 boons. Nachiketas. May my father's anger be appeased, and may he remember me and welcome me when I return to him. Let this be my first boon. Death. By my power your father will remember you and love you as before, and when he sees you free from the jaws of death, sweet will be his sleep at night. Nachiketas. There is no fear in heaven, old age and death are not there. The good, beyond both, rejoice in heaven, beyond hunger and thirst and sorrow. And those in heaven attain immortality. You know, O death, that sacred fire which leads to heaven. Explain it to me, since I have faith. Be this my second boon. Death. I know, Nachiketas, that sacred fire which leads to heaven. Listen. That fire which is the means of attaining the infinite worlds, and is also their foundation, is hidden in the sacred place of the heart. And death told him of the fire of creation, the beginning of the worlds, and of the altar of the fire sacrifice, of how many bricks it should be built, and how they should be placed. Nachiketas repeated the teaching. Death was pleased, and went on. A further boon I give you today. This fire of sacrifice shall be known by your name. Take also from me this chain of many forms. One who lights 3 times this sacred fire, and attains union with the 3, and performs the 3 holy actions, passes beyond life and death, for then he knows the God of fire, the God who knows all things, and through knowledge and adoration he attains the peace supreme. He who, knowing the 3, builds up the altar of fire sacrifice, and performs 3 times the sacrifice of Nachiketas, casts off the bonds of death, and passing beyond sorrow, finds joy in the regions of heaven. This is the fire that leads to heaven, which you chose as the second gift. Men will call it the fire sacrifice of Nachiketas. Choose now the third boon. Nachiketas. When a man dies, this doubt arises. Some say he is, and some say he is not. Teach me the truth. Death. Even the gods had this doubt in times of old, for mysterious is the law of life and death. Ask for another boon. Release me from this. Nachiketas. This doubt indeed arose even to the gods, and you say, O death, that it is difficult to understand. But no greater teacher than you can explain it, and there is no other boon so great as this. Death. Take horses and gold and cattle and elephants. Choose sons and grandsons that shall live 100 years. Have vast expanses of land, and live as many years as you desire. Or choose another gift that you think equal to this, and enjoy it with wealth and long life. Be a ruler of this vast earth. I will grant you all your desires. Ask for any wishes in the world of mortals, however hard to obtain. To attend on you, I will give you fair maidens with chariots and musical instruments. But ask me not, Nachiketas, the secrets of death. Nachiketas. All these pleasures, they weaken the power of life. And indeed, how short is all life? Keep thy horses and dancing and singing. Man cannot be satisfied with wealth. Shall we enjoy wealth with you in sight? Shall we live whilst you are in power? I can only ask for the boon I have asked. When a mortal here on earth has felt his own immortality, how could he wish for a long life of pleasures, for the lust of deceitful beauty? Solve then the doubt as to the great beyond. Grant me the gift that unveils the mystery. This is the only gift Nachiketas can ask. Part 2. Death. There is the path of joy and there is the path of pleasure. Both attract the soul. Who follows the first? The two paths lie in front of man. Pondering on them, the wise man chooses the path of joy. The fool takes the path of pleasure. You have pondered, Nachiketas, on pleasures, and you have rejected them. You have not accepted that chain of possessions wherewith men bind themselves, and beneath which they sink. There is the path of wisdom and the path of ignorance. They are far apart and lead to different ends. You are, Nachiketas, a follower of the path of wisdom. Many pleasures tempt you not. Abiding in the midst of ignorance, thinking themselves wise and learned, fools go aimlessly hither and thither like blind. Or deluded by wealth. This is the only world. There is no other, they say, and thus they go from death to death. Not many hear of him, and of those not many reach him. Wonderful is he who can teach about him, and wise is he who can be taught. Wonderful is he who knows him when taught. He cannot be taught by one who has not reached him, and he cannot be reached by much thinking. The way to him is through a teacher who has seen him. He is higher than the highest thoughts, in truth above all thought. This sacred knowledge is not attained by reason, but it can be given by a true teacher. As your purpose is steady, you have found him. May I find another pupil. I know that treasures pass away, and that the eternal is not reached by the transient. I have thus laid the fire of sacrifice of Nachiketas, and by burning in it the transient, I have reached the eternal. Before your eyes have been spread, Nachiketas, the fulfillment of all desire, the dominion of the world, the eternal reward of ritual, the shore where there is no fear, the greatness of fame and boundless space. With strength and wisdom, you have renounced them all. When the wise rests his mind in contemplation on our God beyond time, who invisibly dwells in the mystery of things and in the heart of man, then he rises above pleasures and sorrow. When a man has heard and has understood, and, finding the essence, reaches the inmost, then he finds joy in the source of joy. Nachiketas is a house open for thy Atman, thy God. Nachiketas. Beyond past and future. Death. I will tell you the word that all the Vedas glorify, all self-sacrifice expresses, all sacred studies and holy life seek. That word is Om. That word is the everlasting. That word is the highest end. When that sacred word is known, all longings are fulfilled. It is the supreme means of salvation. It is the help supreme. When that great word is known, one is great in the heaven of Brahman. Atman, the spirit of vision, is never born and never dies. Before him there was nothing, and he is one for evermore. Never born and eternal. Beyond times gone or to come, he does not die when the body dies. If the slayer thinks that he kills, and if the slain thinks that he dies, neither knows the ways of truth. The eternal in man cannot kill. The eternal in man cannot die. Concealed in the heart of all beings is the Atman, the spirit, the self. Smaller than the smallest atom, greater than the vast spaces. The man who surrenders his human will leaves sorrows behind, and beholds the glory of the Atman by the grace of the Creator. Resting, he wanders afar. Sleeping, he goes everywhere. Who else but myself can know that God of joy and of sorrows? When the wise realize the omnipresent Spirit who rests invisible in the visible and permanent in the impermanent, then they go beyond sorrow. Not through the intellect and sacred teaching. If chosen, the Atman reveals his glory. Not even through deep knowledge can the Atman be reached unless evil ways are abandoned. And there is rest in the senses, concentration in the mind, and peace in one's heart. Who knows in truth where he is? The majesty of his power carries away priests and warriors, and death itself is carried away. Part 3. In the secret high place of the heart there are two beings who drink the wine of life in the world of truth. Those who know Brahman, those who keep the 5 sacred fires, and those who light the threefold fire of Nachiketas, call them light and shade. May we light the sacred fire of Nachiketas, the bridge to cross to the other shore where there is no fear, the supreme everlasting spirit. Know the Atman as lord of a chariot, and the body as the chariot itself. Know that reason is the charioteer, and the mind indeed is the rein. And their paths are the objects of sense. When the soul becomes one with the mind and the senses, he is called one who has joys and sorrows. Never steady is not the ruler of his life, like a bad driver with wild horses. At right understanding, and whose mind is ever steady, is the ruler of his life, like a good driver with well-trained horses. He who has not right understanding is careless and never pure, reaches not the end of the journey, but wanders on from death to death. But he who has understanding is careful and ever pure, reaches the end of the journey, from which he never reins of his mind, reaches the end of the journey, the supreme everlasting spirit. Beyond the senses are their objects, and beyond the objects is the mind. Beyond reason is the spirit in man. Beyond the spirit in man is the spirit of the universe, and beyond is Purusha. Nothing is beyond Purusha. He is the end of the path. The light of the Atman, the spirit, is invisible, concealed in all beings. It is seen by the seers of the subtle, when their vision is keen and is clear. The wise should surrender speech in mind, mind in the knowing self, the knowing self in the spirit of the universe, and the spirit of the universe in the spirit of peace. Awake, arise, strive for the highest and be in the light. Sages say the path is narrow and difficult to tread, narrow as the edge of a razor, The Atman is beyond sound and form, without touch and taste and indeed above reasoning. When consciousness of the Atman manifests itself, man becomes free from the jaws of death. The wise who can learn and can teach this ancient story of Nachiketas, taught by Yama, the god of death, finds glory in the world of Brahman. He who, filled with devotion, recites this supreme mystery at the gathering of Brahmins, or at the ceremony of the Sraddha for the departed, prepares for eternity. He prepares in truth for eternity. Part 4. The Creator made the senses outward going. They go to the world of matter outside, not to the spirit within. But a sage who sought immortality looked within himself and found his own soul. The foolish run after outward pleasures and fall into the snares of fast embracing death. But the wise have found immortality, and do not seek the eternal in things that pass away. This by which we perceive colours and sounds, perfumes and kisses of love, by which alone we attain knowledge, by which verily we can be conscious of anything. This in truth is that. When the wise knows that it is through the great and omnipresent Spirit in us that we are conscious in waking or in dreaming, then he goes beyond sorrow. When he knows the Atman, the Self, the inner life, who enjoys like a bee the sweetness of the flowers of the senses, the Lord of what was and of what will be, then he goes beyond fear. This in truth is that. The God of creation, who in the beginning was born from the fire of thought before the waters were, who appeared in the elements and rests, having entered the heart, the Goddess of infinity, who comes as a life power, and nature, who was born from the Agni, the all-knowing god of fire, hidden in the two friction fire sticks of the holy sacrifice, as a seed of life in the womb of a mother, who receives the morning adoration of those who follow the path of light or the path of work. This in truth is that. Whence the rising sun does come, and into which it sets again, wherein all the gods have their birth, and beyond which no man can go. This in truth is that. What is here is also there, and what is there is also here. Who sees the many, and not the one, wanders on from death to death. Even by the mind this truth is to be learned. There are not many, but only one. Who sees variety and not the unity, wanders on from death. Soul dwells within us, a flame the size of a thumb. When it is known as the Lord of the future, then ceases all fear. This in truth is that. Like a flame without smoke, the size of a thumb, is the soul, the Lord of the past and the future, the same both today and tomorrow. This in truth is that. As water raining on a mountain ridge runs down the rocks on all sides, so the man who only sees variety of things runs after them on all sides. But as pure water raining on pure water becomes one and the same, so becomes, O Nachiketas, the soul of the sage who knows. Part 5. By ruling this castle, man is free from sorrows, and free from all bondage attains liberation. In space he is the sun, and he is the wind and the sky. At the altar he is the priest, and the soma wine in the jar. He dwells in men and in gods, in righteousness and in the vast heavens. He is in the earth and the waters and in the rocks of the mountains. He is truth and power. The powers of life adore that God who is in the heart, and he rules the breath of life, breathing in and breathing out. When the ties that bind the spirit to the body are unloosed, and the spirit is set free, what remains then? This in truth is that. A mortal lives not through the breath that flows in and that flows out. The source of his life is another, and this causes the breath to flow. I will now speak to you of the mystery of the eternal Brahman, and of what happens to the soul after death. The soul may go to the womb of a mother, and thus obtain a new body. It even may go into trees or plants, according to its previous wisdom and work. There is a spirit who is awake in our sleep, and creates the wonder of dreams. He is Brahman, the spirit of light, who in truth is called the immortal. All the worlds rest on that spirit, and beyond him no one can go. This in truth is that. As fire, though one, takes new forms in all things that burn, the spirit, though one, takes new forms in all things that live. He is within all, and is also outside. As the wind, though one, takes new forms in whatever it enters, the spirit, though one, takes new forms in all things that live. He is within all, and is also outside. As the sun that beholds the world is untouched by earthly impurities, so the spirit that is in all things is untouched by external sufferings. There is one ruler, the spirit that is in all things, who transforms his own form into many. Only the wise who see him in their souls attain the joy of that. He is the eternal among things that pass away, pure consciousness of conscious beings, the one who fulfills the prayers of many. Only the wise who see him in their souls attain the peace eternal. This is that. Thus they realize the ineffable joy supreme. How can this be known? Does he give light, or does he reflect light? There the sun shines not, nor the moon, nor the stars. Lightnings shine not there, and much less earthly fire. From his light all these give light, and his radiance illumines all creation. Part 6. The tree of eternity has its roots in heaven above, and its branches reach down to earth. It is Brahman, pure spirit, who in truth is called the immortal. All the worlds rest on that spirit, and beyond him no one can go. This in truth is that. The whole universe comes from him, and his life burns through the whole universe. In his power is the majesty of thunder. Those who know him have found immortality. From fear of him fire burns, and from fear of him the sun shines. From fear of him the clouds and the winds and death itself move on their way. If one sees him in this life before the body passes away, one is free from bondage. But if not, one is born and dies again in new worlds and new creations. Brahman is seen in a pure soul as in a mirror clear. and also in the Creator's heaven as clear as light, but in the land of shades as remembrance of dreams, and in the world of spirits as reflections in trembling waters. When the wise man knows that the material senses come not from the spirit, and that their waking and sleeping belong to their own nature, then he grieves no more. Beyond the senses is the mind, and beyond mind is reason, its essence. Beyond reason is the spirit in man, and beyond this is the spirit of the universe, the evolver of all. And beyond is Purusha, all-pervading, beyond definitions. When a mortal knows him, he attains liberation and reaches immortality. His form is not in the field of vision. No one sees him with mortal eyes. He is seen by a pure heart, and by a mind and thoughts that are pure. Those who know him attain life immortal. When the five senses and the mind are still, and reason itself rests in silence, then begins the path supreme. This calm steadiness of the senses is called yoga. Then one should become watchful, because yoga comes and goes. Words and thoughts cannot reach him, and he cannot be seen by the eye. How can he then be perceived except by him who says, he is? In the faith of he is, his existence must be perceived, and he must be perceived in his essence. When he is perceived as he is, then shines forth the revelation of his essence. When all desires that cling to the heart are surrendered, then a mortal becomes immortal, and even in this world he is one with Brahman. When all ties that bind the heart are unloosened, then a mortal becomes immortal. This is the sacred teaching. 101 subtle ways come from the heart. One of them rises to the crown of the head. This is the way that leads to immortality. The others lead to different ends. Always dwelling within all beings is the Atman, the Purusha, the Self, a little flame in the heart. Let one with steadiness withdraw him from the body, even as an inner stem is withdrawn from its sheath. Know this pure immortal light. Nachiketas learnt the supreme wisdom taught by the God of afterlife, and he learnt the whole teaching of inner union, of yoga. Then he reached Brahman, the Spirit Supreme, and became immortal and pure. So in truth will anyone who knows his Atman, his higher self.
Morris Production.
Prasna Upanishad. First question. Sukesa Bharadvaja, Saibya Satyakama, Sauyayani Gagya, Kasalya Asvalayana, Bhagava Vaidavi, and Kabandi Katyayana were students filled with devotion for Brahman, the Supreme Spirit. Their minds rested on Brahman, and they were in search of the highest Brahman. Once they said, the holy Pipalada can explain all the sacred teaching. And thus thinking, they approached him, bringing as a sign of reverence fuel for the sacred fire. The sage said to them, remain another year in steadiness, purity and faith. Ask then anything you desire, and if I know, I will tell you. When the time came, Kabandi Katyayana approached the sage and said, whence came your creative sage replied, will produce being. The sun is life, and the moon is matter. All that has form, solid or subtle, is matter. Therefore, form is matter. When the rising morning sun enters the east, and then the south and the west and the north, and all the sky are illumined by that light that gives life to all that lives. Thus rises the sun as fire, as life in its infinite variety. It was said in a verse of the Rig Veda, "The sun is rising in golden radiance, the sun of 1,000 rays, in 100 regions abiding. The God omniscient, the aim of all prayers, the light and fire supreme, the infinite life of all beings. The Lord of creation is in truth the time of the year. This has two paths, the way of the south and the way of the north. Those who worship thinking, we have done sacrifices and pious works, attain only the regions of the moon and return to life and death. That is why those sages who desire children and the life of the family follow the path of the south. This is the path that leads to the ancestors. But those who in search of the inner spirit follow the spiritual path of the north with steadiness, purity, faith and wisdom, attain the regions of the sun. And there is the ocean of life, the refuge supreme, the land of immortality where there is no fear. From there they do not return again. It is the end of the journey." There is a verse of the Rig Veda that says, "Some speak of a father who sends rain from the heaven of the north, resting on the seasons and showing himself in 12 ways. Others speak of a sage in the heaven of the south, with a chariot of 7 wheels and 6 spokes. The day and night are the Lord of creation. Day is life and night is matter. Those who join in love by day waste life, but they follow the good path, those who join in love by night. The dark fortnight is indeed matter, and the bright fortnight is life. Some sages perform their rituals in the bright fortnight, but some in the time of darkness. Food is in truth the Lord of creation. From food, seed is produced, and from this beings are born. Those who obey the law of the Lord of creation, they in turn become creators and like him produce a pair. They attain the pale regions of the moon. But those in whom there is no deceit, untruth or bad faith, who live in steadiness, purity and truth, theirs are the radiant regions of the sun." Then Bhargava Vaidavi asked, "Master, what are the powers that keep the union of a being? How many keep burning the lamps of life? And which amongst them is supreme?" The sage replied, "The power that and voice, mind, the eye and the ear. These powers light the lamps of life and say, 'We keep the union of this being, and we are its foundation.' But life, the power supreme, said to them, 'Do not fall into delusion. It is I, in my fivefold division, keep the union of this being, and I am its foundation.' But they believed him not. Life was offended and rose aloft to leave the body, and all the powers of life had to rise, and, life coming again to rest, all the powers had to rest. As when a queen bee arises, all the bees with her arise, and when she comes to rest again, then all again come to rest. Even so it happened to the powers of the voice, the mind, the eye, and the ear. The powers then understood and sang in joy this song of life. Life is the fire that burns and is the sun that gives light. Life is the wind and the rain and the thunder in the sky. Life is matter and is earth, what is and what is not, and what beyond is in eternity. On life all things are resting as spokes in the center of a wheel. On life are resting the Vedas and prayers and warriors and priests. To thee, resting with thy powers, O life, all beings offer adoration. As Lord of creation, thou movest in the womb of the mother, thence to be reborn. Thou art the chief bearer of gifts to the gods, the first offering made to the departed. Thou art the poetry, the truth of ancient sages. Thou art Rudra, the god of protection. Thou art Indra in thy radiance, O life. As the sun that wanders in heaven, thou art Lord of all heavenly lights. When the rain pours down from heaven, O life, all thy creatures rejoice, and they say, food for us shall be in abundance. Thou art pure, O life, supreme seer, Lord and consumer of all. We, the givers of what thou enjoyest, thou, our Father, the breath of all life. Be favourable unto us, O life, with that invisible form of thine, which is in the voice, the eye, and the ear, and which lives in the mind. Go not from us. In thy power is all this world, and even the third most sacred heaven. As a mother her child, protect us, O life. Give us glory and give us wisdom. Third question. Then Kausalya Asvalayana asked, Master, this life, whence does it arise? How does it come to this body? How, after diffusing itself, does it abide here? How does it leave the body? How does it sustain the universe without and the universe within? The sage replied, Great are the questions you ask from me. But you are a great lover of Brahman. I will answer. Life comes from the spirit. Even as a man casts a shadow, so the spirit casts the shadow of life. And as a shadow of former lives, a new life comes to this body. As when a ruler commands his officials and appoints them cities to be ruled, even so Prana the power rules the other living powers of the body. Apana rules its lower regions. Prana itself lives in the eye and the ear, and moves through the nose and the mouth. Samana rules the middle regions, and distributes the life-giving offering of food. From Samana come the 7 flames. In the heart dwells the Atman, the Self. It is the center of 101 little channels. From each one of them come 100 channels more. 72,000 smaller channels branch from each one of these. In all these millions of little channels moves the power of Vayana. Rising by one of them, the living power of Udana leads to the heaven of purity by good actions, to the hell of evil by evil actions, and if by both again, to this land of man. The sun is Prana, the life of this universe, and he rises giving joy to the life in human eyes. The divinity of the earth rules the lower regions of Apana. Between the sun and the earth there is space or samana. Air is Vayana. Fire is Udana. When that fire of life is gone, senses are absorbed in mind, and man comes to life again. His last thoughts lead him to Prana, and accompanied by the living fire of Udana, and led by Atman, the spirit himself, he goes to the regions deserved and desired in imagination. He who thus knows the meaning of life his offspring never dies and attains life everlasting. There is a verse that says, "He who knows the rising of life and how it comes to the body, how it abides there in its fivefold division, and knows its relation to the inner spirit, enjoys eternal life, in truth enjoys eternal life." Fourth question. Then Sauyayani Gagya asked, "Master, how many powers sleep in man and how many remain awake? Who is that spirit that beholds the wonder of dreams? Who enjoys the mystery of sleep with no dreams? Who is that spirit on whom all the others find rest?" The sage replied, "As when, before darkness falls, the rays of the setting sun seem all to become one in its circle of light, though at the hour of sunrise they spread out again, even so all the powers of the senses become one in the higher power of the mind. Then a person does not see, hear, smell, taste, or touch, does not speak, receive or give, move, or enjoy joys of love. Then people say he sleeps. But in the city of the body the fires of life are burning, they sleep not. Apana is like the sacred home fire forever kept burning from father to son. Vayana is like the fire of the south for offerings to the ancestors. Prana is like the fire of the east, lit up by the home fire. Samana is the Hotri priest, evenly distributing the two offerings of expiration and inspiration. The mind is the performer of the sacrifice, and Udana is its fruit, since every day it takes the mind in sleep to Brahman, the Almighty. And in dreams the mind beholds its own immensity. What has been seen is seen again, and what has been heard is heard again. What has been felt in different places of faraway regions returns to the mind again. Seen and unseen, heard and unheard, felt and not felt, the mind sees all, since the mind is all. But when the mind is overcome by its own radiance, then dreams are no longer seen. Joy and peace come to the body. Even as birds, O beloved, return to their tree for rest, thus all things find their rest in Atman, the Supreme Spirit. All things find their final peace in their inmost self, the Spirit. Earth, water, fire, air, space, and their invisible elements, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and their various fields of sense, voice, hands, and all powers of action, mind, reason, the sense of I, thought, inner light, and their objects, and even life and all that life sustains. It is the spirit of man who sees, hears, feels perfumes, touches and tastes, thinks and acts, and has all consciousness. And the spirit of man finds peace in the Spirit supreme and eternal. He who knows, O my son, that eternal spirit, incorporeal and shadowless, luminous and everlasting, attains that eternal spirit. He knows the all and becomes the all. A verse there is that says, "He who knows, O my beloved, that eternal spirit wherein consciousness and the senses, the powers of life and the elements find final peace, knows the all, and has gone into the all." Fifth question. Then Saivya Satyakama asked, "Master, that man who until the end of his life rests on Om, his meditation, where does he go after life?" The sage replied, "The word Om, O Satyakama, is the transcendent and the immanent Brahman, the Spirit Supreme. With the help of this sacred word, the wise attains the one or the other." Om, or Aum, has three sounds. He who rests on the first, his meditation, is illumined thereby, and after death returns speedily to this world of men, led by the harmonies of the Rig Veda. Remaining here in steadiness, purity and truth, he attains greatness. And if he rests his mind in meditation on the first two sounds, he is led by the harmonies of the Yajur Veda to the regions of the moon. After enjoying their heavenly joys, he returns to earth again. But if, with the three sounds of the eternal Om, he places his mind in meditation upon the Supreme Spirit, he comes to the regions of light of the sun. There he becomes free from all evil, even as a snake sheds its old skin. And with the harmonies of the Sama Veda, he goes to the heaven of Brahma, wherefrom he can behold the spirit that dwells in the city of the human body, and which is above the highest life. There are two verses that say, the three sounds not in union lead again to life that dies, but the wise who merge them into a harmony of union in outer, inner and middle actions become steady, he trembles no more. With the harmonies of the Rig Veda unto this world of man, and with those of the Yajur Veda to the middle heavenly regions. But with the help of Om, the sage goes to those regions that the seers know in the harmonies of the Sama Veda. There he finds the peace of the Supreme Spirit, where there is no dissolution or death, and where there is no fear. Sixth question. Then Sukesa Bharadvaja said, Master, Prince Hiranyanaba, Kausalya, came once to me and asked this question. Do you know the spirit of 16 forms? I know him not, I answered the young prince. If I knew him, how could I say that I knew him not? For he who speaks untruth withers like a tree to the roots. I will not speak untruth. The prince became silent, and, mounting his chariot, departed. And now I ask you, where is that spirit? The sage replied, O my son, the spirit in whom 16 forms arise is here within this body. Going out, shall I go out? And in whose staying shall I stay? And he created life, and from life faith and space and air, light, water and earth, the senses and the mind. He created food, and from food austerity, sacred poems, holy actions, and even the worlds. And in the worlds, name was created. As when rivers flowing towards the ocean find their final peace, their name and form disappear. Even so, the 16 forms of the seer all flow towards the spirit and find their final peace. Their name and form disappear, and people speak only of spirit. There is a verse that says, These forms in him find rest like spokes in the center of a wheel. Know ye the spirit that should be known, that death may afflict you not. Then the sage said to the disciples, Thus far I know the Supreme Spirit. There is nothing beyond. Bowing to in adoration, the disciples said, You are in truth our Father, who has saved us from ignorance, and has led us to the shore beyond. Adoration to the Supreme Seers. Adoration to the Supreme Seers.
Santana Star Beats.
Laser outer spaceship.
Mundaka Upanishad. was before the gods were, the creator of all, the guardian of the universe. The vision of Brahman, the foundation of all wisdom, he gave in revelation to his firstborn son, Atavan. That vision and wisdom of Brahman given to Atavan, he in olden times revealed to Angira, and Angira gave it to Satyava, who in succession revealed it to Angiras. Now there was a man whose name was Saunaka, owner of a great household, who approaching one day Angiras with reverence, asked him this question: Master, what is that which, when known, all is known? Use the Vedas. Definition and grammar, pronunciation and poetry, ritual and the science of heaven. But the higher wisdom is that which leads to the eternal. He is beyond thought and invisible, beyond family and colour. He has neither eyes nor ears. He has neither hands nor feet. He is everlasting and omnipresent, infinite in the great and infinite in the small. He is the eternal whom the sages see as the source of all creation. Even as a spider sends forth and draws in its thread, even as plants arise from the earth and hairs from the body of man, even so the whole creation arises from the eternal. By tapas, the power of meditation, Brahman attains expansion, and then comes primeval matter and primal matter. Chapter 2. This is the truth. The actions of devotion that sages heard in sacred verses were told in many ways in the 3 Vedas. Perform them always, O lovers of the true. They are your path of holy action in this world. When the flames of the sacred fire are rising, place then in faith the sacred offerings. If at the sacred fire of Agni-Hotra no heed is new moon, or of the full moon, or of the seasons of the year, or of the first fruits of spring, if no guests are present, if the offering of the sacrifice is left undone or not done according to rule, or the offering to all the gods is forgotten, then the offerer does not attain the reward of the 7 worlds. The dancing flames of the sacred fire are 7. The black, the terrific, that which is swift as the mind, that which is dark with smoke, the deep red, the spark blazing, and the luminous, omniformed flame. If a man begins his sacrifice when the flames are luminous, and considers for the offerings the signs of heaven, then the holy offerings lead him on the rays of the sun, where the Lord of all gods has his high dwelling. And when on the rays of sunlight the radiant offerings raise him, then they glorify him in words of melody. Welcome, they say, welcome here. Enjoy the heaven of Brahma, won by pure, holy actions. But unsafe are the boats of sacrifice to go to the farthest shore. Unsafe are the 18 books where the lower actions are explained. The unwise who praise them as the highest end go to old age and death again. Abiding in the midst of ignorance, but thinking themselves wise and learned, fools aimlessly go hither and thither, like blind led by the blind. Wandering in the paths of unwisdom, we have attained the end of life, think the foolish. Clouds of passion conceal to them the beyond, and sad is their fall when the reward of their pious actions has been enjoyed. Imagining religious ritual and gifts of charity as the final good, the unwise see not the path supreme. Indeed, they have in high heaven the reward of their pious actions, but thence they fall and come to earth or even down to lower regions. But those who in purity and faith live in the solitude of the forest, who have wisdom and peace, and long not for earthly possessions, Those in radiant purity pass through the gates of the sun to the dwelling place supreme, where the spirit is in eternity. Beholding the world's creation, let the lover of God attain renunciation. What is above creation cannot be attained by action. In his longing for divine wisdom, let him go with reverence to a teacher, in whom live the sacred words, and whose soul has peace in Brahman. To a pupil who comes with mind and senses in peace, the teacher gives the vision of Brahman, of the spirit of truth and eternity. Part 2. Chapter 1. This is the truth. As from a fire of flame thousands of sparks come forth, even so from the Creator an infinity of beings have life, and to him return again. But the spirit of light above form, never born, within all, outside all, is in radiance above life and mind, and beyond this creation's creator. From him comes all life and mind, and the senses of all life. From him comes space and light, air and fire and water, and this earth that holds us all. The head of his body is fire, and his eyes the sun and the moon. His ears the regions of heaven, and the sacred Vedas his word. His breath is the wind that blows, and this whole universe is his heart. This earth is his footstool. He is the spirit that is in all things. From him comes the sun, and the source of all fire is the sun. From him comes the moon, and from this comes the rain, and all herbs that grow upon earth. And man comes from him, and man unto woman gives seed. And thus an infinity of beings come from the Spirit Supreme. The verses of the Rig Veda, and songs of the Sama Veda, prayers of the Yajur Veda, and rites of initiation, sacrifices and offerings and gifts, the offerer of the sacrifice, the year, and the world purified by the light from the sun and the moon, all come from the Spirit. From him the oceans and mountains, and all rivers come from him, and all herbs, and the essence of all whereby the inner spirit dwells with the elements, all come from him. The Spirit, in truth, is all. Action, and the power of tapas, and Brahma, the Creator, and immortality. He who knows him dwelling in the secret place of the heart cuts asunder the bonds of ignorance, even in this human life. Chapter 2. Radiant in his light, yet invisible in the secret place of the heart, the Spirit is the supreme abode wherein dwells all that moves and breathes and sees. Know him as all that is, and all that is not, the end of love-longing, beyond understanding, the highest in all beings. He is self-luminous and more subtle than the smallest, but in him rest all the worlds and their beings. He is the everlasting Brahman, and he is life, and word, and mind. He is truth and life immortal. He is the goal to be aimed at. Attain that goal, O my son. Take the great bow of the Upanishads, and place in it an arrow sharp with devotion. Draw the bow with concentration on him, and hit the center of the mark, the same everlasting spirit. The bow is the sacred Om, and the arrow is our own soul. Brahman is the mark of the arrow, the aim of the soul. Even as an arrow becomes one with its mark, let the watchful soul be one in him. In him are woven the sky and the earth and all the regions of the air, and in him rest the mind and all the powers of life. Know him as the one, and leave aside all other words. He is the bridge of immortality. Where all the subtle channels of the body meet, like spokes in the center of a wheel, there he moves in the heart and transforms his one form unto many. Upon Om, Atman, yourself, place your meditation. Glory unto you in your faraway journey beyond darkness. He who knows all and sees all, and whose glory the universe shows, dwells as the spirit of the divine city of Brahman in the region of the human heart. He becomes mind and drives on the body and life, draws power from food, and finds peace in the heart. There the wise find him as joy and light and life eternal. And when he is seen in his immanence and transcendence, then the ties that have bound the heart are unloosened, the doubts of the mind vanish, and the law of karma works no more. In the supreme golden chamber is Brahman indivisible and pure. He is the radiant light of all lights, and this knows he who knows Brahman. There the sun shines not, nor the moon, nor the stars. Lightnings shine not there, and much less earthly fire. From his light all these give light, and his radiance illumines all creation. Far spreading before and behind, and right and left, and above and below, is Brahman, the Spirit Eternal. In truth, Brahman is all. Part 3, Chapter 1. There are two birds, two sweet friends, who dwell on the selfsame tree. The one eats the fruits thereof, and the other looks on in silence. The first is the human soul, who, resting on that tree, though active, feels sad in his unwisdom. But on beholding the power and glory of the higher spirit, he becomes free from sorrow. When the ear beholds in golden glory the Lord, the Spirit, the Creator of the God of creation, then he leaves good and evil behind, and in purity he goes to the unity supreme. In silent wonder the wise see him as the life flaming in all creation. This is the greatest seer of Brahman, who, doing all his work as holy work, in God, in Atman, in the Self, finds all his peace and joy. This Atman is attained by truth and tapas, whence come true wisdom and chastity. The wise who strive and who are pure see him within the body, in his pure glory and light. Truth obtains victory, not untruth. Truth is the way that leads to the regions of light. Sages travel therein free from desires, and reach the supreme abode of truth. He is immeasurable in his light, and beyond all thought, and yet he shines smaller than the smallest. Far, far away is he, and yet he is very near, resting in the inmost chamber of the heart. He cannot be seen by the eye, and words cannot reveal him. He cannot be reached by the senses, or by austerity or sacred actions. By the grace of wisdom and purity of mind, he can be seen indivisible in the silence of contemplation. This invisible Atman can be seen by the mind, wherein the five senses are resting. All mind is woven with the senses, but in a pure mind shines the light of the self. Whatever regions the pure in heart may see in his mind, whatever desires he may have in his heart, he attains those regions and wins his desires. Let one who wishes for success reverence the seers of the Spirit. Chapter 2. Then he knows the supreme dwelling of Brahman, wherein the whole universe shines in radiance. The wise who, free from desires, adore the Spirit, pass beyond the seed of life in death. A man whose mind wanders among desires and is longing for objects of desire, goes again to life and death according to his desires. But he who possesses the end of all longing, and whose self has found fulfillment, even in this life his desires will fade away. Not through much learning is the Atman reached, not through the intellect or sacred teaching. He is reached by the chosen of him. To his chosen, the Atman reveals his glory. The Atman is not reached by the weak or the careless, or those who practice wrong austerity, but the wise who strive in the right way lead their soul into the dwelling of Brahman. Having reached that place supreme, the seers find joy in wisdom. Their souls have fulfillment. Their passions have gone. They have peace. Filled with devotion, they have found the spirit in all and go into the all. Those ascetics who know well the meaning of the Vedanta, whose minds are pure by renunciation, at the hour of departing find freedom in the region of Brahman and attain the supreme everlasting life. The 15 forms return to their sources, and the senses to their divinities. Actions and the self and his knowledge go to the supreme everlasting. As rivers flowing into the ocean find their final peace, and their name and form disappear, even so the wise become free from name and form, and enter into the radiance of the Supreme Spirit, who is greater than all greatness. In truth, who knows God becomes God. Upanishad. Om. This eternal word is all. What was, what is, and what shall be, and what beyond is in eternity, is Om. Brahman is all, and Atman is Brahman. Atman the self has 4 conditions. The first condition is the waking life of outward moving consciousness, enjoying the 7 outer gross elements. The second condition is the dreaming life of inner moving consciousness, enjoying the 7 subtle inner elements in its own light and solitude. The third condition is the sleeping life of silent consciousness, when a person has no desires and beholds no dreams. That condition of deep sleep is one of oneness, a mass of silent consciousness made of peace and enjoying peace. This silent consciousness is all-powerful, all-knowing, the inner ruler, the source of all, the beginning and end of all beings. The fourth condition is Atman in his own pure state, the awakened life of supreme consciousness. It is neither outer nor inner consciousness, neither semi-consciousness nor sleeping consciousness, neither consciousness nor unconsciousness. He is Atman, the Spirit himself, that cannot be seen or touched. That is above all distinction, beyond thought, and ineffable. In the union with him is the supreme proof of his reality. He is the end of evolution and non-duality. He is peace and love. This Atman is the eternal word, Om. Its 3 sounds, A, U, and M, are the first 3 states of consciousness. And these 3 states are the 3 sounds. The first sound, A, is the first state of waking consciousness common to all men. It is found in the word apti, attaining, and adimatvam, being first. Who knows this attains in truth all his desires, and in all things becomes first. The second sound, U, is the second state of dreaming consciousness. It is found in the words utkasha, uprising, and upayatva, bothness. knows this raises the tradition of knowledge and attains equilibrium. In his family is never born anyone who knows not Brahman. The third sound, is the third state of sleeping consciousness. It is found in the word miti, measure, and in the root mi, to end. That gives a piti, final end. Who knows this measures all with his mind and attains the final end. The word Om as one sound is the fourth state of supreme consciousness. It is beyond the senses and is the end of evolution. It is non-duality and love. He goes with his self to the Supreme Self who knows this. Who knows this? Upanishad, Part 1. The lovers of Brahman ask, what is the source of this universe? What is Brahman? From where do we come? By what power do we live? Where do we find rest? Who rules over our joys and sorrows, O seers of Brahman? Shall we think of time, of the own nature of things, or of a law of necessity, or of chance, or of the elements, or of the power of creation, of woman or man? Not a union of these, for above them is a soul who thinks, but our soul is under the power of pleasure and pain. By the yoga of meditation and contemplation, the wise saw the power of God hidden in his own creation. It is he who rules over all the sources of this universe, from time to the soul of man. And they saw the wheel of his power made of one circle, 3 layers, 16 parts, 50 spokes, 20 counterspokes, 6 groups of 8, 3 paths, 1 rope of innumerable strands, and the great illusion. 3 layers, the 3 constituents of nature, light, fire and darkness. 16 parts, or segments of the rim of the wheel, the 5 elements, 5 means to know, 5 means to do, and the mind, 50 spokes, 50 states of consciousness, as taught in the Sankhya wisdom, 5 kinds of error, 28 of weakness, 9 of joy and 8 of achievement, 20 counterspokes, 10 senses and their 10 objects, 6 groups of 8, forms of nature, constituents of the body, powers of yoga, modes of feeling, gods and virtues, 3 paths, the yoga of light, of love and of life, 1 rope of innumerable strands, desire of innumerable forms, the great illusion, the illusion which sees the one as two. They also saw the river of life impetuously rushing with the 5 streams of sense feelings, which come from 5 sources, the 5 elements. Its waves are moved by 5 breathing winds, and its origin is a 5-fold fountain of consciousness. This river has 5 whirlpools, and the violent waves of 5 sorrows. It has 5 stages of pain, and 5 dangerous windings and turnings. In this vast wheel of creation, wherein all things live and die, wanders round the human soul like a swan in restless flying, and she thinks that God is afar. But when the love of God comes down upon her, then she finds her own immortal life. Exalted in songs has been Brahman. In him are God, and the world, and the soul, and he is the imperishable supporter of all. When the seers of Brahman see him in all creation, they find peace in Brahman, and are free from all sorrows. God upholds the oneness of this universe, the seen and the unseen, the transient and the eternal. The soul of man is bound by pleasure and pain, but when she sees God, she is free from all fetters. There is the soul of man with wisdom and unwisdom, power and powerlessness. There is nature, Prakriti, which is creation for the sake of the soul. And there is God, infinite, omnipresent, who watches the work of creation. When a man knows the 3, he knows Brahman. Matter in time passes away, but God is forever in both matter and soul. By meditation on him, by contemplation of him, and there comes in the end the destruction of earthly delusion. When a man knows God, he is free. His sorrows have an end, and birth and death are no more. When in inner union he is beyond the world of the body, then the 3rd world, the world of the spirit, is found, where the power of the all is, and man has all, for he is one with the one. Know that Brahman is forever in thee, and nothing higher is there to be known. When one sees God and the world and the soul, one sees the 3, one sees Brahman. Even as fire is not seen in wood, and yet by power it comes to light as fire, so Brahman in the universe and in the soul is revealed by the power of Om. The soul is the wood below that can burn and be fire, and Om is the whirling friction rod above. Prayer is the power that makes Om turn round, and then the mystery of God comes to light. God is found in the soul, when sought with truth and self-sacrifice. As fire is found in wood, water in hidden springs, cream in milk, and oil in the oil fruit. There is a spirit who is hidden in all things, as cream is hidden in milk, and who is the source of self-knowledge and self-sacrifice. This is Brahman, the Spirit Supreme. This is Brahman, the Spirit Supreme. Part 2. Savitri, the god of inspiration, sent the mind and its powers to find truth. He saw the light of the god of fire and spread it over the earth. By the grace of God Savitri, our mind is one with him, and we strive with all our power for light. Savitri gives life to our souls, and then they shine in great light. He makes our mind and its powers one, and leads our thoughts to heaven. The seers of the God who sees all keep their mind and their thoughts in oneness. They sing the glory of God Savitri, who has given every man his work. I sing the songs of olden times with adoration. May my own songs follow the path of the sun. Let all the children of immortality hear me. even those who are in the highest heaven. Where the fire of the Spirit burns, where the wind of the Spirit blows, where the soma wine of the Spirit overflows, there a new soul is born. Inspired then by Savitri, let us find joy in the prayers of olden times. For if we make them our rock, we shall be made pure of past sins. With upright body, head and neck, lead the mind and its powers into thy heart, and the Om of Brahman will then be thy boat with which to cross the rivers of fear. And when the body is in silent steadiness, breathe rhythmically through the nostrils with a peaceful ebbing and flowing of breath. The chariot of the mind is drawn by wild horses, and those wild horses have to be tamed. Find a quiet retreat for the practice of yoga, sheltered from the wind, level and clean, free from rubbish, smouldering fires and ugliness. And where the sound of waters and the beauty of the place help thought and contemplation. These are the imaginary forms that appear before the final vision of Brahman. A mist, a smoke, and a sun, a wind, fireflies, and a fire, lightnings, a clear crystal, and a moon. When the yogi has full power over his body composed of the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, then he obtains a new body of spiritual fire, which is beyond illness, old age, and death. The first fruits of the practice of yoga are health, waste matter, and a clear complexion, lightness of the body, a pleasant scent, and a sweet voice, and an absence of greedy desires. Even as a mirror of gold covered by dust, when cleaned well, shines again in full splendor. When a man has seen the truth of the Spirit, he is one with him. The aim of his life is fulfilled, and he is ever beyond sorrow. Then the soul of man becomes a lamp by which he finds the truth of Brahman. Then he sees God, pure, never born, everlasting. And when he sees God, he is free from all bondage. This is the God whose light illumines all creation, the creator of all from the beginning. He was, he is, and forever he shall be. He is in all and he sees all. Glory be to that God who is in the fire, who is in the waters, who is in plants and in trees, who is in all things in this vast creation. Unto that Spirit be glory and glory. Part 3. There is one in whose hands is the net of Maya, who rules with his power, who rules all the worlds with his power. He is the same at the time of creation and at the time of dissolution. Those who know him attain immortality. He is Rudra. He alone is the one who governs the worlds with his power. He watches over all beings and rules their creations and their destruction. His eyes and mouths are everywhere. His arms and feet are everywhere. He is God who made heaven and earth, who gave man his arms, and who gave to the birds their wings. May Rudra, the seer of eternity, who gave to the gods their birth and their glory, who keeps all things under his protection, and who in the beginning created the golden seed, grant us the grace of pure vision. Come down to us, Rudra, who art in the high mountains. Come and let thy light of thy face, free from fear and evil, shine upon us. Come to us with thy love. Let not the arrow in thy hand hurt man or any living being. Let it be an arrow of love. Greater than all is Brahman, the Supreme, the Infinite. He dwells in the mystery of all beings according to their forms in nature. Those who know him, who knows all, and in whose glory all things are, attain immortality. I know the Spirit Supreme, radiant like the sun beyond darkness. He who knows him goes beyond death, for he is the only path to life immortal. His infinity is beyond what is great or small, and greater than him there is nothing. Like a tree everlasting, he stands in the center of heaven, and his radiance illumines all creation. Those who know him who is greater than all, beyond form and beyond pain, attain immortality. Those who know not go to the worlds of sorrow. All this universe is in the glory of God, of Shiva, the god of love. The heads and faces of men are his own, and he is in the hearts of all. He is indeed the Lord Supreme, whose grace moves the hearts of men. He leads us unto his own joy, and to the glory of his light. He is the inmost soul of all, which like a little flame, the size of a thumb, is hidden in the hearts of men. He is the master of wisdom, ever reached by thought and love. He is the immortality of those who know him. He has innumerable heads and eyes and feet, and his vastness enfolds the universe, and even a measure of 10 beyond. God is in truth the whole universe, what was, what is, and what beyond shall ever be. He is the God of life immortal, and of all life that lives by food. His hands and feet are everywhere. He has heads and mouths everywhere. He sees all, he hears all. He is in all, and he is. The light of consciousness comes to him through infinite powers of perception, and yet he is above these powers, is God, the ruler of all, the infinite refuge of all. The wandering swan of the soul dwells in the castle of 9 gates of the body, and flies away to enjoy the outer world. He is the master of the universe, of all that moves, and of all that moves not. Without hands he holds all things, without feet he runs everywhere. Without eyes he sees all things, without ears all things he hears. He knows all, but no one knows him, the Spirit before the beginning, the Spirit supreme everlasting. Concealed in the heart of all beings lies the Atman, the Spirit, the Self, smaller than the smallest atom, greater than the greatest spaces. When by the grace of God man sees the glory of God, he sees him beyond the world of desire, and then sorrows are left behind. I know that Spirit whose infinity is in all, who is ever one beyond time. I know the Spirit whom the lovers of Brahman call eternal, beyond the birth and rebirth of life. Part 4. May God, who in the mystery of his vision and power transforms his white radiance into his many-coloured creation, from whom all things come and into whom all they return, grant us the grace of pure vision. He is the sun, the moon and the stars. He is the fire, the waters and the wind. He is Brahma, the creator of all, and Prajapati, the lord of creation. Thou this boy and thou this maiden, thou this man and thou this woman. Thou art this old man who supports himself on a staff. Thou the God, whom appears in forms infinite. Thou the blue bird, and thou the green bird. Thou the cloud that conceals the lightning, and thou the seasons and the oceans. Beyond beginning, thou art in thy infinity, and all the worlds had their beginning in thee. There is nature, never born, who with her 3 elements, light, fire and darkness, creates all things in nature. There is the never-born soul of man bound by the pleasures of nature, and there is the spirit of man never born, who has left pleasures behind in the joy of the beyond. There are 2 birds, 2 sweet friends who dwell on the self-same tree. The one eats the fruits thereof, and the other looks on in silence. The first is the human soul, who resting on that tree, though active, feels sad in his unwisdom. But on beholding the power and the glory of the higher spirit, he becomes free from sorrow. Of what use is the Rig Veda to one who does not know the spirit from whom the Rig Veda comes, and in whom all things abide? For only those who have found him have found peace. For all the sacred books, all holy sacrifice and ritual and prayers, all the words of the Vedas, and the whole past and present and future come from the spirit. With Maya, his power of wonder, he makes all things, and by Maya the human soul is bound. Know therefore that nature is Maya, but that God is the ruler of Maya, and that all beings in our universe are parts of his infinite splendor. He rules over the sources of creation. From him comes the universe, and unto him it returns. He is the Lord, the giver of blessings, the one God of our adoration, in whom there is perfect peace. May Rudra, the seer of eternity, who gave to the gods their birth and their glory, who keeps all things under his protection, and who in the beginning saw the golden seed, grant us the grace of pure vision. Who is the God to whom we shall offer adoration? The God of gods, in whose glory the worlds are, and who rules this world of man and all living beings. He is the God of forms infinite, in whose glory all things are, smaller than the smallest atom, and yet the creator of all, ever living in the mystery of his creation. In the vision of this there is everlasting peace. He is the Lord of all, who, hidden in the heart of things, watches over the world of time. The gods and the seers of Brahman are one with him. And when a man knows him, he cuts the bonds of death. When one knows God, who is hidden in the heart of all things, even as cream is hidden in milk, and in whose glory all things are, he is free from all bondage. This is the God whose work is all the worlds, the supreme soul who dwells forever in the hearts of men. Those who know him through their hearts and their minds become immortal. There is a region beyond darkness where there is neither day nor night, nor what is nor what is not. Only Shiva, the god of love, is there. It is the region of the glorious splendor of God, from whom came the light of the sun, and from whom the ancient wisdom came in the beginning. The mind cannot grasp him above or below, or in the space between. With whom shall we compare him, whose glory is the whole universe? Far beyond the range of vision, he cannot be seen by mortal eyes, but he can be known by the heart and the mind, and those who know him attain immortality. A man comes to thee in fearful wonder and says, Thou art God, who never was born. Let thy face, Rudra, shine upon me, and let thy love be my eternal protection. Hurt not my child, nor the child of my child. Hurt not my life, my horses, or my cows. Kill not in anger our brave men, for we ever come to thee with adorations. Part 5. Two things are hidden in the mystery of infinity of Brahman: knowledge and ignorance. Ignorance passes away, and knowledge is immortal. But Brahman is in eternity above ignorance and knowledge. He is the one in whose power are the many sources of creation, and the root and the flower of all things. The golden seed, the Creator, was in his mind in the beginning, and he saw him born when time began. He is God who spreads the net of transmigration and then withdraws it in the field of life. He is the Lord who created the lords of creation, the supreme soul who rules over all. Even as the radiance of the sun shines everywhere in space, so does the glory of God rule over all his creation. In the unfolding of his own nature, he makes all things blossom into flower and fruit. He gives to them all their fragrance and colour. He, the One, the only God who rules the universe. There is a spirit hidden in the mystery of the Upanishads and the Vedas, and Brahma, the god of creation, owns him as his own creator. It is the spirit of God, seen by gods and seers of olden times, who, when one with him, became immortal. When a man is bound by the three powers of nature, he works for a selfish reward, and in time he has his reward. His soul then becomes the many forms of the three powers, strays along the three paths, and wanders on through life and death. The soul is like the sun in splendor. When it becomes one with the self-conscious I am and its desires, it is a flame the size of a thumb. But when one with pure reason and the inner spirit, it becomes in concentration as the point of a needle. The soul can be thought as the part of a point of a hair, which divided by 100 were divided by 100 again. And yet in this living soul there is the seed of infinity. The soul is not a man nor a woman, nor what is neither a woman nor a man. When the soul takes the form of a body, by that same body the soul is bound. The soul is born and unfolds in a body, with dreams and desires and the food of life, and then it is reborn in new bodies, in accordance with its former works. The quality of the soul determines body, earthly or airy, heavy or light. Its thoughts and its actions can lead it to freedom, or lead it to bondage in life after life. But there is the God of forms infinite, and when a man knows God, he is free from all bondage. He is the creator of all, ever living in the mystery of his creation. He is beyond beginning and end, and in his glory all things are. He is an incorporeal spirit, but he can be seen by a heart which is pure. Being and non-being come from him, and he is the creator of all. He is God, the God of love, and when a man knows him, then he leaves behind his bodies of transmigration. Part 6.